Hi, I'm Sarah from In the Buff Wellness, and I get a lot of messages every day of how do I lose body fat and what's the best way to lose weight? Is it keto? Is it carnivore? Is it calorie counting? And what's the difference? Because there are differences when it comes to burning calories versus losing weight or fat loss. And this is what I want to break down for you today. So, energy matters. The amount of food that you're eating every day has an impact on your hormones though as well. So I want to explain a little bit about why all of this matters and then the differences of each. So when you are eating food, you have a response in your body. So you have a meal, there's going to be your glucose goes up. So your food is going to break down into glucose, and then that's going to raise in your blood. And it's toxic to have too much sugar in our blood. So the body produces insulin from the pancreas, and that is what brings it into the cells to use for energy. And it clears it out of the blood, everything's good, and you're full. And then when you need more fuel, you get hungry again. This is how it should work. The problem is the system is hijacked. In nature, there was never a need to lose weight. It was always about staying alive. It was never a need to lower your blood sugar. It was always a need to raise it in case of stress. You would need that burst. It would need to break it down, but it was never what we are in now, which is a constant feeding session. So when you're eating, and over time, you are eating more often, you're snacking, you're eating higher sugar foods or foods that break down into sugar. So maybe you're not eating ice cream anymore, but if you had a bagel for breakfast and then rice and then, all of these other breads and carbs, and those become sugar in the body. So glucose is what that turns into in the body. So it's really the same thing. It's sugar in another form. So sugar in all forms is too much. And your bloodstream and your blood glucose can only be about a teaspoon of sugar equivalent glucose at any given time. The rest would be toxic. So that's the balance. And most foods are way more than that. Like a cup of rice is almost 10 teaspoons equivalent of glucose to sugar. So that's a lot at once that could just be, one meal and they're eating all these other things the rest of the day. So that is going to make a really big difference of how much insulin then you produce. Because if you start eating more often and higher foods, you need to produce more insulin to clear that out of the system. And eventually, those cells are getting real tired of this. They're starting to not hear it anymore. They don't hear that signal like, hey, the insulin, the sugar and the insulin is knocking on the cell door. Hey, 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 let us in. And the cell's saying, we're full, or we don't need that. We just don't hear it anymore. It's zoning it out. So the pancreas produces more insulin to say, hey, clear this, clear this. And things are getting lazy. So that's what you can call, and I won't get too technical, but when your body's overproducing insulin and it's not listening to the signal anymore, that's when there's a problem. So you can calories all day long, but if you eat less, you now can't access the stored body fat when insulin's high, because insulin is what would have been high when you're eating. So your body's not going to want to break down fat if there's food available. In nature, if you were got a kill and you were feasting, you're not going to burn body fat. You're going to be, taking all that nutrients in. So that was how it worked. But then in this context, where we're eating Franken foods and all of these things that we shouldn't be eating and overeating and often and late night eating and all of that, or just years of this, it is too much. So when that insulin stays high because it's never able to come down to a normal level, that it could tap into body fat. So if this is normal, and then at night you were able to have a little body fat or, go, it should be like a smooth wave, smooth ocean versus at sea, a very big storm, on waves crashing up and down like that. And that is what blood sugar is doing majority of the time from all these people. And that is why calories, they are not the end all be all. And a calorie is just a unit of heat. So it really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that the amount of energy that you eat doesn't matter. So that's why people will say calories don't matter, because they don't. And different foods have different thermic effects and burn rates in your body. But there's also this hormone response, and that's the insulin response I'm talking about. Because if you're not able to access body fat as fuel, and now you're starving and you're not getting the glucose you need, the body's going to freak out and you're going to cause other problems. And that's where people can then start to have the down regulation of their metabolism. Things will slow down. Your thyroid will slow down. Your hair can fall out, and all of these other complications of a more starvation diet because the body thinks there is a famine because you're not getting as much food as you need. So this is why calories are not the way to lose body fat. It doesn't mean you wouldn't lose weight. If somebody's going to eat a lot less food, it's going to work, but it doesn't work the way you think because the body adjusts. After several days, it really doesn't take too long. The body adapts to you giving it less, so it puts less out. And that's going to be lowering the metabolism, less in, less out. What it really is if you eat more, you're going to get more output, but we don't want to eat so much more that we can't tap into body fat. So this is the reason that addressing the hormones of insulin and glucose are super important. So then what about keto versus carnivore? And I love both of these approaches, but these labels nowadays, which sounds crazy, that if you just say keto, that could mean a million things. What you really want is ketosis. That's the metabolic state where you're actually able to burn the body fat. But eating keto means nothing. It's like when you went to the doctor and they said, hey, you can't lose weight, you should eat healthy. Well, I am. Oh, okay, easy. I'm eating healthy now. I guess that wasn't your diet that was the problem. When maybe you think healthy is, eating all the breads and grains and whole grains and fruits and vegetables and eating every 2 to 3 hours. So all of that is what people think is healthy. And this is the same way as keto. Now, ketosis is using body fat as fuel and showing ketones. And that doesn't mean that if you eat a lot of fat, you may not be showing that you could show ketones, and you would. So if you were to even eat a bowl of rice and pour MCT oil all over it, or butter all over it, you're going to show ketones because when you eat that, it's going to be in your blood. It's going to be converted to that. But it's not saying, hey, we're burning body fat. You are burning fat, but whose fat? Now, the other side of that is if you are not getting enough glucose, just like we talked about when you were starving yourself of calories and not getting enough, a keto traditional way of eating keto, where some people have just a small amount of protein, a lot of fat, that actually is going to keep your insulin really low. And insulin's job is lowering the blood sugar. So the blood sugar can actually be a little high. So this is all kind of, working, it's all connected, and why it's so difficult to understand how to lose body fat in a good, safe, sustainable way, because you don't want to just crash and burn. And I've done stupid things before where I've gone too hard and I've reaped the consequences of it, because there are consequences to trying to go too hard too fast. So what's really the best way to get into body fat burning and to do this in a healthy, sustainable way? It's prioritizing protein. So your ketogenic diet should be focused around protein, or your carnivore diet should be focused around protein. So keto and carnivore get thrown into a similar bucket because they are reducing carbohydrates, and you're understanding all these other things break down into sugar. But meat also breaks down into glucose. So you need the right amount of glucose for your body. There are certain cells that cannot run on fat, and that's by design. So your red blood cells, your parts of your brain, your kidneys, certain things that don't have mitochondria need glucose, and why you need a certain amount. And then when you're not eating carbohydrates, you might have been eating a certain amount of protein, but now that protein is also your glucose needs. So you may need this much protein for your body muscle to stay the same. And now you need this much protein because you're stopping eating things that turn to glucose to get your glucose. So now protein is getting your amino acids for you and your glucose. And it's why people can crash and burn. This is where I work one-on-one every day with hundreds of clients, and we go through to make sure what you're actually doing. Because whether you call yourself keto, whether you call yourself carnivore, or you're a ketovore, or I say carnivore with a K because I try to teach the actual ketosis part of it. That's why I work one-on-one, because it's not necessarily, is this food good? Is this bad? What does that food do in your body, your environment, your nervous system, your digestion, your blood sugar? If you're super insulin sensitive, people like that can get away with a lot of things. Others that have a lot of body fat to lose are going to have it be harder for a while until they get things under control. So this is why it does come down to where you are in the journey. But no matter what, prioritizing protein is the number one thing that you need to do for any type of diet, whether it is low carb, high carb, even. Not that I recommend that, is something good, but you need enough protein. It's super important for satiety. It's not going to blast that glucose really high up and spike that so you're having huge amounts of insulin. It's going to allow you to be full and not be hungry. So these are the reasons that I always say to prioritize protein on the plate. It's not to fear fat, but it's a right amount of adequate fat. And having a stick of butter with a tiny little burger patty is not the way. You need to prioritize the protein. So I hope that this helps explain a little bit about, what's actually happening in your body, the hormones that are affecting it. And if you want to know more about, actually the consequences of giving yourself less and less and less all the time, I have a free masterclass where I talk about the Minnesota starvation experiment and what that did when people just lowered their calories and the consequences to it. So you can check that out if you go to inthebuffwellness.com, sign up to watch my free masterclass, and it will get into all those details. So I hope this helped. And if you have any questions, comment below. Let me know what style you eat, how you feel, and if you understand then the difference between, weight loss and fat loss, because even that, fat loss is burning that body fat, but weight loss, you could be losing muscle, you could be losing bone and hair. And those are not things we want to do. We don't want all of those complications. And those are the type of things I talk about in this free fat loss masterclass. So please head to my website, check that out, or comment below if you have any questions about what's working and what's not working for you. So if you're looking to optimize your health, be a stronger size, it's not about weighing less. It's actually about feeling good, feeling strong. It's about optimizing your body, building muscle, being lean, having dense bones and muscles, and thriving. So if you like this video, please let me know in the comments, and I will chat again with you soon.